Hey, what's going on? This this is my daily driver X5, 2006. I think the build date's 2005. The N62 4.4 liter V8 and all-wheel drive. Had a bad oil leak for ages, and the first thing we did was changed all the valve stem seals, which that went fine, long but fine. And the next thing we're doing after that is we're changing the alternator gasket, which is probably why you're here for this video. Um, Obviously, I don't have a shop, but I do have some halfway decent tools to do this. And so the when you get that much of an oil leak, you're probably going to have your axle smoked. So and even if your axle boots aren't shot, I would just recommend changing the axles while you're doing this job, because you need to disconnect them from the differential anyways. Now, most of the write-ups you're going to read, people want you to just completely remove the diff, and unscrew the engine and engine mount and lift the engine. I want to show you that this can be done with hand tools on the ground. I've got some jack stands and a jack, and I managed to do it without completely removing the diff and without undoing the engine mounts for the engine. So what we've done here is that there's 4 bolts, 4/16s that hold in this differential, and I've unbolted them. I've left the top rear bolt in, meaning it's completely unthreaded from the oil pan, but it's still in. To get to that, I used this deep reach 16 millimeter. This one's Chinesium from Harbor Freight, and use the angle grinder and grind off. Just kiss it a little bit, just to get enough clearance in there. This guy's also good for that rear bolt. Now, one of the things about this job is this took me way longer than it should have, because it's my first time doing this service on an E53. I'm used to Nissans, and I'm used to 3 Series and 7 Series. So this is everything on this truck has taken me considerably longer than it should have, but I go slow the first time I do anything to make sure I can get it done without breaking anything, with breaking the fewest things possible, at least. Some remarks about working on these cars and about online guides you're going to see. A lot of stuff I'll usually try to look up the bolt size for something. Now with like this guy, this is the actual bracket that you're trying to get at, and that's the seal that fails. Mine doesn't look like it's physically failed, like a crack, but it's rock hard, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what I was going to remark here is this thing said in the online guides and on the FSM, it's held together with 3 13s, one here, and one here. But we get in there, and what do we find out? Well, there's our 2 13s, and then the long guy, well, he's actually a Torx. So I grew up and I apprenticed at an exotics shop, and what this reminds me of is the 70s and 80s Leyland cars, where they, in a specific week, they'll just kind of grab a pack of parts and fasteners for whatever, and they'll just throw them together. So if this is your first, even if it's not your first time on one of these trucks, I would say take your time in identifying the fasteners, because they all seem to have changed sizes, week to week on different fasteners. I looked at a video from the UK on doing the brakes, taking the brakes off, and the sizes for the Allen keys and the bolts were all different on the brakes as well. So just a heads up to be careful. But so this job, everyone bitches about it online. Everyone says that it is a quote unquote nightmare. And if you call the dealership, one dealer quoted me $18.50, the other dealer quoted me $16.50, and the local independent in town quoted me $1,400, claiming he had just done this service. Now, if I had a lift and I had done one of these before, at least, I'd probably charge about $800, just because you can get this done probably about 4.5 hours, and that's by doing this. So let's show you in here. All right, so see, that's loose. With the axle out, completely removed, there's a lot more space to actually make things happen. Most of your access when you're doing the bracket is going to be right through the undercarriage. So you've got to take off the skid plate anyways. But I mean, if you're going to take the axles out, you want that off too. So, and then after that, you got pretty good access in there, pretty easy to get to and to grab and to work out. And as I said, I didn't unbolt the engine mount. I just took this jack. It's a new Harbor Freight jack with a nice rubber pad on it. Put it right on the corner right there of the oil pan, and just gently pushed it up. Since it's an aluminum oil pan, you got to be careful. You don't want to put metal on it. You run the risk of cracking it, and you don't want to over pump it because it'll crack. But unlike a steel one, it won't bend. So if you're in between cracking and bending, or if you're light enough that you don't crack it, you're probably okay. And really only a 1/2 inch up just to get a little bit extra play to get to that rear bolt. So if you don't let yourself get psyched out by people saying that this job is a nightmare, if you've done the valve stem seals on this truck before, that way more complicated, way more tedious, bigger pain in the ass. People were saying that, the reach on this job doing the alternator bracket was a bitch. Is really nothing compared to the reach involved on getting those back rear valves and how uncomfortable you'll be. Other people said, I needed a whole bunch of extensions. I needed 40 extensions. And, I think 1 or 2 bolts, I really had to get, a weird extension on. And I stuck I think that with an adapter onto an impact and just kissed it real quick just to take it loose. And then everything else you can just reach in with your arm and grab. And I've got massive hands. So being able to reach everything for me was really easy. Not a problem. Let's see what else. As far as specialty service tools. So you want that deep 16 open-ended. You're going to need, having a little bit of air power and electric impact's good. I would recommend air, especially the age these trucks are at now and how many miles. Getting the axles out, I would use an air, or I would recommend, that's what I did use, is an impact air hammer. I'll show you this guy, and I just used him with that off and just nailed it directly into the hubs until it wanted to come loose for us. Other specialty service tools. 14 millimeter Allen key impact, or I think it's a 1/2 inch drive. That was for taking the diff fluid out. You need 7590 synthetic gear oil. We're going to change the differential oil while we're taking everything apart. The other thing you want to do on this, to get this guy out, you want to back these off. Now, backing those off basically means that backing them off means that you stick a 8mm Allen key in through the front and back it off.